Today I'm going to set the rear camber, the camber on the rear wheels. And I'm trying to zoom in on the wheel. And if you notice, the top end is out relative to the bottom. And that is called positive camber. And I've got a level that's a digital, and I'm going to try to get this close. It should be negative camber, just a little bit, maybe a degree, half a degree to a degree. I couldn't find a spec right handy, but as I'm reading this, it says it's 86.2 degrees, and I've got an arrow pointing that way. So to make it negative, I want my arrow pointing that way and have it read like 89 degrees. So how do you set it? I knew you were going to ask that. I have put in I've got a wire in the way that I need to, I don't know whether you could see that on the video, but I'm talking about reading the gauge, but I'm zooming in on the strut rod, and I need to remove a piece of wire that I had hanging the muffler up. So I put on adjustable strut rods. What came stock on the C3 Corvettes is a system where they used a cam bolt that would, by turning it, you would move the strut rod in or out. This is a little more able to be adjusted. Now, I have not tightened these jam nuts. Okay, they hold this adjusting rod. This is threaded on both ends. I made it as short as possible so that I knew that I could only turn it one way when I start adjusting it. I do have the wheels on alignment plates so that when I turn the wheels, there's ball bearings in those alignment plates, and it will, you can maybe see that on, I'll have to lift the camera up. I don't know how steady I can hold it, but if you look at the plate it's on, at the bottom of the wheel, it's sitting on a plate, and it's up above that metal piece, and it's on there on ball bearings. So as I adjust the strut rod, it's going to allow that wheel to move. And that's important, because if that wheel can't move, you can adjust that strut rod all you want, and you're not going to be able to read the camber correctly until you move that car and allow it to settle in. So the adjustable, the rod here itself has a flat on it that takes a 3/4 inch wrench. Right now all it's doing is moving the hind joints. Okay, now I'm moving the actual rod. I'm gonna probably, this probably has to be adjusted quite a ways, but I'm going to move it a little bit at a time and see how many degrees I've affected it, because you don't want this to be unthreaded. Although I think it's probably got a sufficient safety factor in it. So I can still tell visually that my top end of that tire is still out further than the bottom end. So I'm going to go back under there, give it some more cranks, come out, until I get it. I'm turning this clockwise as I'm facing the wheel, and that's lengthening the strut rod. So once I get it to where it looks like it's vertical or near vertical, possibly negative camber, if you will, I'll put the level on it and take the readings, see what we get. Okay, that's starting to look pretty level to me. So let's see if I can fire up the level here. I was having trouble with it before because the tape on it comes up with the temperature, which is 65 degrees in here. Gotta get it to read the limit. There it is. I'll try to hold this, and hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to remember already if I degrees, and I'm pointing the other way. So that is 1 degree. 1 degree negative camber. Now it's flipping around between 80. Yeah, 89. Check that one more time, make sure that arrow is actually pointing the way I think it's pointing. It is pointing the way I think it's pointing. Degrees. Okay. And I didn't move the camera, so all that talking was for nothing. I'm gonna hopefully get this to show up on the camera. Not so much aimed at the wheel as I am at where I think the reading on the level is going to show up. And okay, a little bit off the vertical. Before I was consistently getting an 89 degree. There you go. Hopefully that's on the video. So it's right at 89 degrees, which will make it 1 degree negative camber. Which, as far as I can recollect, is within specs of where I want to be. Hopefully I had that aimed at the right spot. So whoops, let's go over here. Since that's where we want it, we believe, it's time to tighten up those jam nuts against the adjustable portion of the strut rod so that it can't move. So I can do them by hand. And they both turn clockwise if I'm standing under the car and facing the wheel to tighten them up against the and wouldn't you know it, I left my 3/4. It's a 7/8 wrench out on the toolbox, because I'm going to want to hold that on the flat there, and just crank the jam nut up against it so it doesn't move. On both sides I'll do that. That adjusting rod didn't really want to move as I was doing that, so I don't know how necessary the holding of the adjustable portion of the rod is. So okay, that should be good. Now, let's see if I can be as lucky on the other side. Okay, on this other side, I'm going to have to hold this upside down, if you will. So that I can have it towards the camera. And that's not going to work because of the positioning of these. I'm going to have you trust me that I'm telling you the truth when I put this up against the wheel. That's reading 89.6 now. I believe that is, and it didn't look like it was as far tipped in at the top, or tipped out at the top, I should say. It didn't look like it was as far out. So I'm only going to have to adjust this one a little bit, and I can tell that already that adjusting the first side actually impacted the driver's side because the the turn plate actually moved. So probably going to have to go back and check after I adjust this one, which shouldn't be too much of an adjustment. And I did leave these loose, so I lost my wrenches. Keep putting things down other than where I need them. And again, this is only going to be able to go one way because I tighten them all the way in. So let's see which way it turns. I'm going to try the same thing clockwise as I'm facing the tire. Yep, and that's the right way. Okay, I turned that about a turn and a half. I'm going to go out and put the level on it again. Let's see what it did for me with a turn and a half. It's 88.6 is what it's reading. And I've already forgotten what the reading was before I turned it. So 88.6 or 7. And turn it another turn and a half. Hopefully I can get an idea of about how many degrees a turn and a half will get me. So there's a half a turn, one turn, turn and a half. That's 87.1. So that actually took me too far. So looks like about a half a turn is about a half a degree, and I can tell that that is negative camber right now. So now I've got to turn it back the other way. Let's call it 2 turns. Half. 1. 1 and a half. 2. If my memory was correct and my math was correct, we should be somewhere close to the ballpark. We are 88.9. I think I need to turn it that same direction. Maybe just a little bit, really. We'll try that. Let's see what that gets us. $89. Calling that done, other than tightening up the jam nuts. I'm going to aim this at the tire. Not as obvious on the camera, I don't think, as it is being here in the barn looking at it. But looking at it, it definitely looks like it is negative camber, just a little bit. I'll have to double check and see those specs, because I have to lock these. I'm going to turn them clockwise, both of them. And even though I didn't feel any movement on this on the other side, I'm going to hold it. Yeah. It's actually, it's moving, but what it's doing is rotating on the hind joint. It's not the not the adjustment that's moving. Yeah. Let's switch hands here. Hold with my right and put on the left. Okay, that didn't want to move either, so that's good. I like the way they're working. Okay, nice and tight. double check and make sure that hasn't moved. I don't see any reason why it would have. Take it over and see if I can get the same reading on the passenger side. Crooked a little bit. There's your 89. So I've got 1 degree negative camber. If I find the specs and find out that they are not what I want them to be for how I want to drive the car, I know that approximately a half a turn on those is a half a turn. Is a half a degree. So that worked out pretty well. And again, hard to see on the camera because I don't know, maybe I don't have it right exactly but I can actually see a very slight top in, bottom out tilt. So that's it for adjusting camber on with it on a C3 Corvette with adjustable strut rods. I'm going to do a little addendum here to the strut rod adjustment that adjusted the camber on the rear wheels. What I have here is a stock strut rod. It has rubber bushings which will flex a little bit and give you a little bit of movement, unlike the steel heim joints that are in the one that I installed. But the big difference is there's no adjustment in the strut rod. One end, let's say that end would go to the spindle at the axle, at the tire. And the other end, I have 2 of them here, one from each side, but the other end would have this kind of an arrangement. And basically, if you can imagine this staying still, because these would sit in a pocket, and as you turn this, that center bolt moves from side to side. That's what would move this rod in or out to make your adjustment. It's not as accurate as the adjustable ones, because as you turn this, you really don't know how far that's moving the strut rod. So that's why I went with the adjustable ones. And basically, that's how you adjust the stock ones, and then of course, once you get them where you want them, you lock them down with the bolt and they should stay put. They have little teeth on here that grip. So that doesn't move. That's it for the camber adjustment on the rear.